What I'm going to tell you in this video is going to be so valuable because it's going to give you so much clarity into how we work. Not just how we work as human beings in the 3D, but how we work universally and manifesting as well. It was so important for me to make this video because of the value in it. And I don't really have time to do it, but I thought, make time and do it. So if you know me, you know that I'm very, very big on healing because it's what I teach and I practice what I preach. Self-awareness is the key to this reality, to this life. If you're not self-aware, you're essentially living unconsciously. That doesn't mean if you're not self-aware, you're a bad person. It's just the reality that you're living unconsciously unless you are aware of what you are unconscious of. So most of the behaviors that we have are reactive. Again, that doesn't mean reacting is wrong, but to live in reactive mode is to continuously live unaware because you're just reacting. That's what living in survival is. And with me practicing what I preach, I'm continuously raising self-awareness and I'm continuously healing. The most recent healing that I had, which was yesterday, was one of the biggest and most profound healing sessions that I had myself on my personal journey. I'm going to tell you about it. And one of the things that I always say is you don't know what you don't know. You can know what you can know what you don't know, and you can also not know what you don't know. So if you do know me and you follow me on social media or have seen other videos of mine, you know I'm very, very big on self-love. I practice self-love in so many different ways, which also allows me to love others as well. The part of myself that came to my awareness that I was healing, or parts, should I say, had a horrendously humongous amount of hatred towards me. And because that part is me, I had a lot of hate towards myself that I was unaware of because you don't know what you don't know. So this is what happened. We've got a couple of dogs and I've been training them in different ways for the longest time I can remember. And they're doing amazing. They're fantastic dogs and they're learning and it's part of the process. Nothing out of the ordinary there. For the last 2 days, I've woken up and found that one of the dogs has pooed on the floor in the bedroom. And just like anything else, there's a level of telling the dog off, letting the dog know that that's not okay. And for a while now, I've realized that every time the dogs are doing something they're not supposed to do, that gets me really, really angry. Like I feel it deep within me. And I was like, why am I taking this so personally? They're just dogs. They don't have the mental capacity to really, truly understand what the hell I'm even saying, really. They're just kind of learning patterns and behaviors. So I was aware of me taking it so personally. And this time I really felt that anger, like it was so deep. And I was like, what is going on? Why am I so angry? Like the level of anger that I was didn't really match what was happening. Of course, it matched to the degree that I had the wounds and it's valid that it was there. But it's also very helpful to kind of question what it is that is taking me to this extreme level. So like any other instance where I would heal and raise my awareness, I sat with that emotion. I sat on the floor leaning against the bed and I was in that emotion. I invited that emotion to take over my body, which essentially is going towards this part of myself and taking this part of myself on. And the more I was connecting with the emotion of anger, the more I was connecting with this part of myself, I was hearing the thoughts coming up. So as standard, you just allow yourself to think anything that you're thinking. You allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling without trying to change either of them, because at this moment, it's an exploration. It's not something that I need to change. And I felt called to start journaling because that's one of the most powerful ways to kind of understand what the communication is that is coming from your subconscious, which essentially is this part of you trying to talk to you. And I've got it here and I've actually kept it. And I don't usually do this. I don't usually ever read out what I've written to anyone, let alone the world. But this is what I wrote. Bearing in mind, I'm someone who practices self-love so much, all the time. And this is what I mean by you don't know what you don't know. You are completely unaware of the parts of yourself that are within you, how they feel, what they're trying to say to you, until you are aware of them. So this part of me was saying, you're a fraud. You don't deserve it at all because you always get caught out. People will see you for who you are. I was like, what do you mean caught out? Like, what is going on? You failed. I'm protecting you, you asshole. You hide who you truly are, even if everyone knows who you are. Then they want to leave you. Now, I'm the biggest advocate on authenticity and showing yourself. I live by it. I try to do it as much as I can. We all can do it to the best of our ability, and our ability will increase the more we raise our awareness. But even though I am as authentic as I can be, there are parts of me that still obviously don't want to be. And that's very normal. That's happening within you and within every single human that exists on planet Earth. They would disown you. Why even try? Just lay down. And that's when I started feeling like the depression. When this part of me was telling me, just lay down. Like, why are you even trying? I hate you. Why can't you just be a good person? You always fuck up and get caught. You always try and hide your fuck ups, and you always get caught, constantly getting us into trouble. You suck. So I'm going to explain to you why this part of me was coming up and why it was saying what it was saying. Because you'd be like, all right, well, it doesn't really align with what was happening to you in that moment. And that's the thing. It doesn't necessarily need to. This part of me was the part of me that was constantly getting caught by my caregivers when I was a child for doing something that I shouldn't be doing, going against the rules that were set by my caregiver. And that was literally anything. When you have such strict parents, and I did, my parents were extremely strict, like so strict that if you put a foot wrong, it was like game over. They're not like that now. They've evolved and changed a lot themselves as well. But back in the day, we were all living in survival. Literally, we came from the Iran-Iraq war. My parents pretty much left a country that was in war, living through the revolution. They were extremely traumatized and living in survival. So their way of protecting us, because they were terrified, was to be super, super strict. And I'm talking highest levels. And because I chose to incarnate as the scapegoat of the family, the scapegoat is the one that wants to conform but can't. Just can't. Whereas like the golden child is the one that can conform, and that's still extremely traumatizing. The scapegoat is the one that can't. And this is why the scapegoat is the one that speaks up when things aren't okay and will constantly be like, hey, that behavior is not healthy. We shouldn't do that. Let's not do that. That's not okay, because we can't conform, which is why we become the scapegoat. And it was any rules that were set that didn't make sense to me. I remember one of them being like, oh, you can't have a girlfriend. And I was like, what? Why? As a child, I was looking around and I was in secondary school and everyone had girlfriends. Everyone had boyfriends. And I was like, why can't I? This is ridiculous. And every time I would ask why, the answer would be because I said so. And I was like, that makes no sense. So I snuck around. I had girlfriends in secret because that's extremely normal. And I would get caught. And then you can't see your girlfriend anymore. It's like, well, I snuck around and saw her again. And I'd get caught. And even the smallest thing, don't eat that chocolate. And I would go eat it as a young child and I would get caught. And yes, I know there are parts of you and other people that will probably go, well, you should have listened. It's not the fucking point. Bringing a human being up based on focusing on their behavior only and not why that behavior is there, not going towards the emotional side of that human, validating why that human is being like that, and purely focusing on you have to behave the way that the overlords of your caregivers have set, is an unhealthy way. So if you are someone that's going, well, you should have listened, you've not been brought up in an emotionally healthy way to understand why it's not just about you have to listen to your caregiver, because that's where all the trauma comes from. The fact that the people that we have interacted with in our lives focus purely on behavior and correcting that behavior instead of why that behavior exists and the emotional side and the validation of that single human being, which is you. But I digress. Let's go back. When you have a traumatic experience and the experience of continuously getting caught because I couldn't conform to the nonsense of the rules that made absolutely no sense to me is extremely traumatic. And when you experience trauma, you fragment your consciousness in two parts. One of those parts is the protector part. And this is the protector part talking to me. Protector part was so angry at me because I kept making decisions that got us caught, which was the reason that we would be in unsafety, in danger, in trouble. And this part was really angry at me. Now, this is the thing. A lot of people at this stage would go, okay, well, I'm going to try and convince that part. No, no, no. I was a child. I didn't know. This is not what it was. We need to live like this. This is what it is. That's not what you do. You have to validate the anger of that part of you, because that part of you is right. In the objective perspective, if you were to live fully as that part, it's correct, because I did make decisions that got us into danger. It doesn't mean that the decisions I made were wrong, because that's subjective anyway. But by the rules of engagement of my reality in that moment, the decisions I made took me towards danger. So that part of me is valid. So I validated this part of myself. I became this part of myself. I felt the anger. I felt how this part of myself was feeling. The other part of myself that this part of myself was really angry with as well, the part that was making the decisions which got us into trouble, was saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I just want to do things. I don't understand life. Why can't you help me instead of hurting me? Now, this is huge as well, that part, because one of the ways that we protect ourselves is we do the same thing that's being done to us onto ourselves. So if someone externally from me, if my caregiver or my abuser is berating me, is shaming me, maybe saying something like, oh, you're a terrible dancer, I will do the same thing to myself to stop myself putting myself in an unsafe position again. So I won't dance in front of anyone. And what I will do is I will say to myself, don't, you're a terrible dancer. That way it stops me from doing that. So I'm doing the same thing to myself. This part of me, why can't you help me instead of hurting me, was saying that to the part of myself that had learned to do the same thing that other people were doing to me, which was hurting me instead of helping me. So that line there, why can't you help me instead of hurting me, wasn't just to this part, even though to a certain spiritual level it was, but it was also to my caregivers. Why can't you help me instead of hurting me? Because I don't understand life. I'm trying to learn. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I just want it to be okay. Every time I would do something throughout my life and it was wrong, the outcome would be so extreme. It'd be too extreme. It'd be way over the top. And this is where the strictness comes from. The stricter your caregivers are, the more extreme the traumas are. The I just want it to be okay line is I just want everything to be okay. But the slightest thing that I do goes into like this monster of a reaction. This is why you're walking on eggshells as well. You're terrified of making any mistake, because any mistake you made was just this huge consequence. Even if I left a empty cup of water on the side, I would get so shouted at. It's a fucking cup of water. It's an empty cup of water. The water's not even in it. So becoming aware of this part of myself, doing the standard stuff in terms of healing and integrating, going on that journey. The anger that I had in the moment, I recognized was towards the dog not doing what this part of me wasn't doing. So this part of me was angry at me for not listening to the rules set by the overlords of my caregivers. Because if I listened to the rules, then everything would be safe. But whenever I don't listen, then it's unsafe. And because we treat others how we treat ourselves, how others are behaving will trigger what's within ourselves as well. By the dogs not listening to the rules that were set of not pooing in the house was triggering the fear which was being covered by anger within myself. This part of myself was getting angry because other things, other people or the dog, anything externally from me was mirroring that not listening part of my reality. By the dog not listening, I was feeling my own unsafety because I wasn't listening to myself of following the rules that were set by my caregivers, which is how I would find safety. So my unsafety feeling, everything that was being triggered was happening because the dog wasn't listening. And honestly, this is what we're passing down through the generations, the generational conditioning of finding danger and unsafety and not listening. So what usually happens is that anger gets projected onto the person or the thing that's not listening. Again, this is why self-awareness is so important. Because instead of just reacting and projecting that wound of unsafety and anger onto the next generation, we have to become aware that, oh, hang on, I'm feeling like this. Why am I feeling like this? And this is how you break the generational trauma is by understanding yourself, by raising your awareness. Through raising your awareness in the moments where you would be triggered to feel something, questioning it, understanding it, instead of just taking it out on the other person or the other thing. Now, if you've found yourself that you have been doing that, there has to be a certain level of understanding that you've not known this. And honestly, sometimes these emotions are so powerful. They take over us. They've taken over me. I've done that in the past when I was living unconsciously. I shouted and berated and scolded my son. It's not something that I'm okay with, but I understand that I've not known any of this. And it's something that actually drives me into changing the behaviors, raising my awareness, understanding myself. You've been brought up to believe that anger is this terrible thing and you should never, ever be angry. But that suppression and that belief that you should never be angry is what's actually making it worse. When you understand that anger is just another emotion and it has its values, it has its purpose, your view towards anger completely changes. And it needs to change in order for you to integrate and change these behaviors. I also realized that this part of me that was really, really angry at me said things like, you're a fraud, you don't deserve it at all. People will see you for who you are. You hide who you truly are. If everyone knew who you are, then they would leave you. They would disown you. Why even try? Just lay down. Now, all parts of you are playing a role in manifesting your reality. The parts of you that you are completely unaware of that are in your subconscious actually play a bigger role in manifesting the reality that you're experiencing. Again, this is why self-awareness is so key. This part of me that I was completely unaware of was playing a huge role in keeping me unseen, because people are going to realize that I'm a fraud, that I'm not good enough for doing what I'm trying to do in the world with my teachings and with YouTube and social media. Because every time I was seen, which was the interpretation of vulnerable and doing something wrong, the outcome of that was huge, hugely undesirable, hugely unsafe. So this part of me was like, no, why would we do that? Why would we have more people see us? And this part of me, the beliefs that it carried, was playing a huge role in stopping the progression that I'm trying to actively make in getting myself out there to the world, in social media, on YouTube, everywhere, and allowing myself to be seen so I can grow my business, grow what I'm trying to do, grow the message that I'm trying to give into the world, grow the teachings that I have to give to the world. So this part of myself that I was completely unaware of was actively manifesting a reality where that wouldn't happen, so I wouldn't be seen. And I was completely unaware of it, completely unaware, didn't even know it existed, because you don't know what you don't know. This is what everyone means when they're saying you have energy blocks. You need to understand that energetically. Strategy in business is one thing, but if you focus purely on strategy, it's not going to work because you have energy blocks. You are energy. You energetically are manifesting your reality. That is much, much more important than the 3D kind of strategies you would put into place for anything, whether it's your business or finding a relationship or getting a house. Now, obviously, doing things in the 3D has its place. And by doing stuff in the 3D, you're energetically changing as well. But this is why raising self-awareness is the most important thing in this life, because the more you become aware of yourself, you understand these parts of yourself, you're able to integrate, heal these parts of yourself, your behaviors will change, how you feel overall will change, and your manifested reality will shift into the more desired reality that you want, the desired reality that you came here to experience. If I had just been angry at the dog in that moment and just stayed in the reactive mode and just stayed there without questioning why this is happening, what is the communication of this anger trying to show me, trying to teach me? What part of myself is trying to come to my awareness for me to understand where did this come from? I wouldn't have been able to meet the unmet needs that I've had since these parts existed from the fragmented traumatic experiences of my past. I wouldn't have been able to understand myself in a deeper way, to understand why the behaviors are there within myself. And I wouldn't be able to learn how to give myself the compassion, the understanding, the care, the patience in order to get to a place where I can let go and forgive myself. And I wouldn't have been able to unblock the energy block that is keeping my desired manifested reality for me. Raising your self-awareness is honestly the most important thing you're going to do in this life. Any self-development journey you go on, whether it's consuming my content or consuming other people's content, reading a book, taking courses, no matter what the self-development journey path that you're taking, whether it's spiritually, manifesting, whatever it is, all go towards raising self-awareness. Every single one of them requires you to understand yourself better. And if you strip back reality, you will see that that is all that is here. You, your conscious awareness, and everything, all the matter in the world, everything is expanding out of your conscious awareness, expanding outwards. This is your universe, your reality. And the thing that is expanding out of you, which is your reality, mirrors and shows you. It mirrors parts of you that you are completely unaware of, and it mirrors parts of you that you are aware of as well. And the way that it goes, hey, this is a part of you that exists within you, is by creating a manifestation to then trigger that emotion, which is the way of going, this part of you needs your attention, needs your awareness. And through the awareness and integrating this part of yourself, it doesn't need to show you that anymore. So then your rendered, manifested reality changes. It shifts because it's all coming out of you. Now, if you want to go down the rabbit hole and take this further, I'm going to put a link to my free masterclass in the description below. And if you've stayed to this point of the video and watched everything, take it, do the masterclass. There's a reason why you're still watching this video. I'm so glad that I was finally able to share that experience with you. It was one of the most profound experiences that I've had because of the level of depth that I reached and how far this part of myself was. And it's already completely shifted my reality, completely shifted how I feel. Now I'm going to go and get a beard trim because this stuff needs to be trimmed. Have a lovely rest of the day.